Dinosaurs are probably the most popular dead things on planet Earth, but there are a lot of misconceptions about these immortal legendary lizards. Pop culture still hasn't come to terms with the reality that many dinosaurs were in fact covered in feathers and that many of the animals they considered dinosaurs actually weren't. The average person doesn't seem to truly know what a dinosaur is. For the general public, the word dinosaur is often used as a catch-all term to describe any sort of reptilian creature no longer living and hailing from the vaguely distant past. This is unfortunate because dinosaurs are actually a very specific group of animals that share the same evolved traits. They laid eggs, were warm-blooded and lived on land. That last part is important and is one of the quickest ways to know if you are dealing with a dinosaur or something else. Flying dinosaurs? Nope, not a thing. Aquatic dinosaurs? Again, not actual dinosaurs. There are lots of ancient animals mistaken for dinosaurs, some of which aren't even reptiles. Here is a selection of some of the most popular prehistoric animals that aren't dinosaurs that are commonly confused for their terrifying cousins. Quetzalcoatlus was an absolute behemoth. It dominated the skies and is the largest animal ever to take flight. This impressive pterosaur was named after the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl, a Mayan deity believed to rule over the earth and sea. This giant reptile lived right at the tail end of the Cretaceous era about 68 million years ago. They had a massive 36-foot wingspan and estimates put their weight at nearly 600 pounds. To put that in perspective, the heaviest bird alive today, the Andean condor, only weighs about 33 pounds. They were too big to flap their wings much, choosing instead to soar high and let nature and physics do the heavy lifting. Like modern birds, pterosaurs were believed to have hollow bones, which helped keep them light. The first Quetzalcoatlus fossils were discovered in Texas from the Maastrichtian Javelina Formation at Big Bend National Park in 1971 by geology graduate student Douglas Lawson. The feeding habits of Quetzalcoatlus are controversial. Originally, it was assumed to catch fish and crustaceans like most other pterosaurs, until it was realized that it lived 248 miles from any shore during the Cretaceous period and that there was no evidence for an inland water source for miles around. Dimorphodon is one of the most bizarre-looking pterosaurs to have ever lived. It looks like a cross between a bat and a pterodactyl, with the head of a Tyrannosaurus. Terrorizing the skies almost 200 million years ago, it is believed that Dimorphodon was one of the first large vertebrates to take to the sky. They were relatively small, growing to be a little over 3 feet in length. Hidden inside their unusually large skulls was a very small brain. Extensive research has been done to try and understand how they were capable of flight, even studying the tree-dwelling gliders they may have descended from. It's believed they flapped their heavy wings to aid in flight, much like modern birds. Glyptodon is an extinct type of mammal that lived relatively recently, only dying about 12,000 years ago. These giant relatives of the armadillo were completely covered in armor, with some even sporting Morningstar-style clubs at the tips of their tail. Even though they are mammals, they are often confused with armored dinosaurs like Ankylosaurus. Glyptodon was covered by a protective shell composed of more than 1,000 2.5 cm thick bone plates called osteoderms or scuds. Each species of Glyptodon had its own unique osteoderm pattern and shell type. With this protection, they were armored like turtles. Unlike most turtles, Glyptodons could not withdraw their heads, but instead had a bony cap on the top of their skull. Even the tail of Glyptodon had a ring of bones for protection. Such a massive shell needed considerable support, evidenced by features such as fused vertebrae, short but massive limbs, and a broad shoulder girdle. Humans were known to hunt Glyptodon for their meat and armor, which some experts believe was used to create small homes. They could be found all across the Americas until their extinction, which is believed to have occurred due to a combination of human hunting and climate change. Contrary to popular belief, the sail-backed Dimetrodon is not a dinosaur. It's actually a synapsid, a group of animals that is much older than the dinosaurs and a precursor to modern mammals. If you look far back enough in your family tree, eventually your relatives will start looking a lot like Dimetrodon. Dimetrodon thrived during the Permian era, 35 million years before the first dinosaurs had even evolved. There were many different species, but the largest and most famous was a 10-foot-long monster. They had serrated teeth, perfect for carving flesh, making them one of the Permian's most successful predators. Many species have been described by Edward Drinker Cope during his expedition in 1880s. There is a broad subdivision into species with a long skull from the early Permian and species with a short head from the later part of the Permian. More recent research leads some scientists to conclude that the sail was an inefficient way to regulate body temperature and makes it more likely that the sail was used for sexual display. The changing climate during the Permian period, when the temperature increased, is a possible reason for the extinction of Dimetrodon, since the sail meant no benefit over other animals and was rather a disadvantage due to its fragility. This leviathan is about as prehistoric as you can get. Dunkleosteus is an extinct species of armored fish that could grow to 33 feet in length and had the strongest bite force of any animal ever. Researchers crunched the numbers and determined that at the tip of the tooth, Dunkleosteus had a bite force of about 8,000 per square inch. They lived over 400 million years ago, and it's likely that Dunkleosteus was the most dominant predator to have evolved at the time. Dunkleosteus could also open its mouth in 1/15th of a second, which would have caused a powerful suction that pulled the prey into its mouth. Dunkleosteus may have also been one of the first animals to internalize egg fertilization and thus sexually reproduce in the manner that most mammals do today. Although placoderms only existed for 50 million years, their mark on the fossil record is quite visible. They were a pioneer in the late scenes of the Paleozoic and were vital to the success of the vertebrates. The placoderms died out in the late Devonian for reasons that are still not well understood. Prianosuchus was a temnospondyl amphibian that lived in South America during the Permian, and one that was surprisingly crocodile-like in appearance, with a snout similar to that of a gharial crocodile. Most specimens of Prianosuchus are fairly small, at only about 2.5 meters in length, but one exceptionally large skull, just over 1.5 meters in length, has yielded a truly terrifying proposition. With a skull this large, the total body length achievable for Prianosuchus would have been up to 9 meters long, something that not only makes Prianosuchus possibly the largest temnospondyl amphibian known, but also one of the biggest predators of the Permian. Most temnospondyl amphibians are perceived to be hunters of aquatic organisms such as fish and other amphibians, and there is certainly no evidence to refute this for Prianosuchus. With the additional possibility of individuals growing to exceptional sizes, then Prianosuchus may well be one of the key apex predators of the Permian. This would mean that larger Prianosuchus would be able to attack and kill almost anything else in the water, even smaller members of their own species. Everything about Sarcosuchus screams I'm a dinosaur, but it just isn't. Though it's true that modern crocodiles are related to dinosaurs, as both groups are under the umbrellas family of archosaurs. Archosaurs include crocodilians, modern birds, dinosaurs, and pterosaurs. Sarcosuchus is a crocodilian archosaur, and the largest known freshwater crocodile to ever exist. It prowled the lakes and rivers of sub-Saharan Africa, eating anything stupid enough to get too close. These monstrous reptiles lived 110 million years ago and grew to nearly 40 feet in length. It's believed that a full-grown Sarcosuchus weighed as much as 10 tons. The inspiration for the Loch Ness Monster, the long-necked plesiosaurs, were a group of marine reptiles whose unique appearance made quite an impact on the collective unconscious. Plesiosaurs were a diverse group of animals, some of which had much shorter necks than the most commonly depicted species. The Plesiosaurus was one of the first fossils ever to be discovered, so this animal has a long history in the paleontological world. It's believed that they developed their long necks in order to easily scavenge food from the seafloor. Despite many inaccurate representations, plesiosaur necks were actually pretty inflexible. Researchers have also determined that these old animals most likely swam in a way that would look pretty similar to modern penguins. Ichthyosaurs were the reptilian answer to dolphins. They were marine lizards that had evolved to be at home in the sea, mirroring the body shapes of other aquatic animals like fish and dolphins, in a remarkable display of convergent evolution. Ichthyosaurs were most likely slow swimmers, but could reach high speeds using quick bursts of energy. They may have hunted by slowly stalking their prey until the moment was right for them to pounce at full speed. For a while they were the ocean's top predators, only to be bested upon the arrival of the plesiosaurs. Although these aquatic reptiles are featured in the movie Jurassic World, they didn't live during the Jurassic period and aren't true dinosaurs. Mosasaurs are thought to have evolved in the early Cretaceous period, the last epoch before the extinction event that wiped out most large life forms. The biggest mosasaurs grew up to 18 meters long, 59 feet, which is the size of the largest theropod and the giant shark megalodon, and almost as long as today's largest macrocarnivore, the sperm whale. Mosasaurs would have been much faster swimmers than these animals because they had long, flattened and paddle-like tails that they would have used to accelerate in great bursts of speed. Mosasaurs are very light for their size because similarly sized creatures like megalodon and the sperm whale weigh in excess of 20 tons, whereas mosasaurs never weighed more than 10 tons.